Hello, everyone. Welcome to Continental Aspire Soccer. I'm your host, CEO and founder, Nick Donnelly. Really happy to be here with you. Follow any of our latest content on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can reach out to us there with any questions that you may have at the end. So we're actually going to talk, when is a player ready to be signed by a professional academy in Continental Europe? And that's a question I was getting. I kind of came up with this topic because I felt that this is kind of what a lot of people want to know. But I think the continent is probably the best place to start your development journey. You know, for example, at 16. But also, if you're younger, but obviously you've got to live within that country because of FIFA regulations. And kind of travel. And one of the things we'll actually talk about, we're obviously going to talk about, like, for example, like the player pathway. And I think that when we're kind of talking about the player pathway, there's definitely things that people have to be aware of. Whenever you're coming on a pathway, we like people to come to the football training, the online aspect first, because I think it definitely prepares them in terms of how we can actually help them. So when they come to us, it's really beneficial for them. I think that's so important. And I think that, you know, I mean, you're not just going to walk into a professional club day one. Remember, every professional was once an amateur, and so they've obviously had to follow a journey, had to follow a big journey. And so I think it's definitely for people to be aware. And I think if you're coming from a non-EU country, we always say to kids that obviously coming through on this journey, and everybody, some players will be signed directly, but that's, like I said, it just depends on the profile, which is to one of our earlier webinars, which is webinar 1. The first webinar, I kind of speak about that and how clubs kind of think and how they process who they're going to sign at the end of the day. But one of the things that we do is we say, by coming to talent identification, we actually see a lot of players that actually go on to progress, like I said, like the next level. So if a player is looking to obviously do well, I think it's coming to, like, for example, a CIS talent identification, whether it's the international one, obviously the one we hold in Florida, and then the ones we hold in London. And then we also do hold games programs across Continental, like games programs for kids that have come to so if you come to the international one, then that next one will probably be the best one for you to actually come to. Because then if you're not ready in your journey, and it's good to see how you'll actually progress against, and we also run, we also are obviously at tournaments, and we obviously bring kids together and they come from different places and different parts of the world, different backgrounds, and putting them in together to see if they can actually play within a team. And I think academy-wise, kids are on a different pathway. Some kids will be late developers, some will be, or what we call whispering talents, a talent that somebody doesn't see, that's not obvious. And we like those sorts of players a lot because some of those kids can go on to do really, really good things and become superstars, 100%. And so one of the things that we would actually say is that you are where you are in your journey, and accept where you are, because you only know what you know. And I think that by obviously following a lot of our content, we obviously are always out there, and we always want to educate those people that follow us, our loyal fans that follow us. And like I say, in terms of going through the journey, so that's the pathway. So if you're locally based, you just attend a talent identification camp, or if you're from abroad, or you're not locally based, it would then be an international talent identification. We hold both of those in both areas. So just check out our website for the next available one. But because of COVID, we're obviously, those aren't happening currently at this moment in time. But like I say, we'll keep you posted, and it'll be on the website if that status changes. Also, one of the things we also like to speak about is kind of the independence of a player. So when a player comes to us, one of the things we look at a lot is, can they think of themselves? And that's one of the things you see in like an elite environment. You can see the kids that are ready for, also maturity, how mature someone is, and everybody is at a different point. Maybe other kids are more mature than others. I think that's what makes us all unique in a way. We're just different. So I think it's definitely important to understand that. That's definitely a critical component to do with that. So what I would say is if pretty much if you turn around and you're looking at your own development, you know what I mean, you want to be looking at when you're going in, because coaches and clubs, they do expect you to obviously be mature enough to follow instructions, to, you know what I mean, so your general demeanor. So if you've got a physio appointment and a coach says, right, you've got this injury, I want you to go and see the physical therapist, and they give your parents directions. But then they a lot of coaches, they will leave it up to the kid because it tells them how seriously he takes his own development. And I think it's very important for a kid, because once they come in at 16, they've got to learn to be independent from that age, and not be reliant on mommy and daddy, because at the end of the day, football is not for kids. It's for, you know, once you go into a club on a full-time basis, and football is a type of environment that you have to grow up. You have to grow up quite quickly. I mean, I was speaking to a guy recently, just over Christmas, and there's a kid, he's playing in the US, he's playing the MLS, and he's 19, and he's having to make adult decisions about moving to another country. There's a big club that really wants to sign him, and I was just giving him advice, and this kid, he doesn't like the adult side of it. So he's still very immature, and I said I don't think he's ready to move to Europe. I think he needs to stay in the MLS a couple more years. Like he's only 19, so even 2-3 more years, I think, you know, whatever is going to help him to get that next level. So not everybody's ready, but that's also because that was all changing. He's having to think for himself. And that can be daunting for some people. I totally understand certain cultures. You know, I mean, kids still live at home. You know, I mean, so not really away from home, or if they're attachment, but also if they're getting homesick and things like that. And that's why it's great for kids and parents, you know, to help their kids, help them gain independence sooner rather than later. And I know it's every parent's nightmare, you know, as a parent myself. And that's one of the things I always tell my daughter is that, you know, to get her to be independent. And excuse me. So she's wanting to obviously get involved in acting and stuff, and it's a very competitive industry, you know, even football as well, and these other things. But she's experiencing these things, and she's learning that independence, and that also increases self-confidence. Versus somebody that's actually not being taught that, it definitely will have a detrimental effect on their independence, and obviously you don't want that to be the case.
Before Nick moves on, this is just a reminder to check out our online football course using the link in the description. This is our pride and joy, a specially tailored course designed by top professional coaches from across Europe. For a relatively cheap price, there are a few other ways to improve your game in such an effective manner. Click on the link below to find out more.
So looking at like the right personality and attitude, the attitude, we also look at that the sacrifice that a player is going to have to make along the way. So, for example, you can't hang out with your friends. You can't go out on a Friday night, you know, for example, round to your friend's house to play on the PlayStation, because you got to wake up the next morning, because you got to travel somewhere for a game. These are part of the paths you choose when you're really, really young. And that's one of the things I always did when I was going through that process. I definitely made sure I was in bed early. I was up early. My kit was ready. My football boots were all clean. My kit was I always clean my boots when I came back. Or what I would usually do, if I didn't have a game on the Sunday, I would usually clean them on the Sunday, because maybe I want to go out with my friends on Saturday if I got back early enough. But sometimes I get back late, which I would usually do that then. But I'd usually do it on a Sunday usually. If I didn't have anything till, you know, but typically on a Saturday, because if you're only off on the Sunday, then you want to take off the day and rest up, because typically from 16 to 18 as a scholar, if you're in at a professional club, you're literally obviously going through that. And I think on the continent, you know what I mean, you don't have ever like you do in English clubs, they spoil kids like completely. But when you go to the continent, if you're from a non-EU country, you're not going to see what that's like. But they get completely spoiled. I spoke to somebody today, and they told me about one particular player. He's at a top Premier League club, and he's only 17. He's making £10,000 a week, and he's only 17. but there's a lot of things going on with him. He's explained me his situation, but at the end of the day, he has the right attitude, and he's got to that level at 17, and he's really applied himself. He's a very good player as well, but like I say, he's also worked extremely hard to get to that level. But now it's, how hard is he going to work to get to the next level? So this is definitely an important element for young kids to actually learn. So that's definitely important to learn also. I think that the right attitude, I think towards the coaching staff, and I think coaches are quite adamant in terms of respecting their space, what they demand of you as a player. And sometimes coaches may not always be fair to you, and I think people need to realize that. But I always think it's always good when you're being pushed in a certain area, because then the coach's job is to make you better. At the end of the day, he wants to have a good relationship with you and wants to really improve you. So there has to be a respect. You have to obviously respect his authority in that space, but also other people you'll run into when you're within a club being easy to get along with. And I think that's when kids are getting ready to go into a professional club, that they're in that environment and they're learning what it really takes to survive in that environment. That's really what it's about. It's about really doing well and wanting to do well. But I also think, going back to the previous one of the initial points there, it's being motivated. You know what I mean, to want to go in and do well and give your best. I think that's definitely an important element. So and I think that whenever you look at, like, for example, I think the sacrifice. So obviously going to bed. I think the nutritional side. I think the hydration side. You just need to look on the internet. You see a lot of the top players, and one of the things that they do is they do those basics well, and that's why they'll have longer careers. They'll get another contract when another player didn't get one. I mean, I look at Wayne Rooney compared to Cristiano Ronaldo as an example, and his career, he didn't do any of the things. He did the opposite, and that's why his career won't last as long. Cristiano Ronaldo will get another contract, which means he'll end up doing better financially for his family, but also he wants to enjoy his career. He wants it to last. I think he wants to play until he's 40. And that's a guy that's been playing professional football since the age of 17. So that's like a 23-year career. So that's definitely going to be an important aspect for, I think, for everyone, for any player that's looking to be a professional footballer and is ready to go into an academy and aspire to be a professional. Do you know what I mean? These are the things he's going to have to be doing, really looking after his health, looking after his sleep, all of those things, and having a very balanced lifestyle, away from the pitch, you know what I mean? And not being distracted by things off it. Also looking at the friendships you have. If they're going to take you away from your goal, you maybe need to think about that. That's definitely one of the sacrifices that you need to consider. Because if that's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt your chance of you achieving your goal and your dream in some respects, that might be something you need to consider. But if they're really good friends, they're going to respect that. They're going to respect you for it. They're going to be very, very supportive. So, and then obviously we're going to look at. We're going to look at the authority of the coach. Authority of the coach. A lot of times, I've seen many players really just clash with the coach. I remember one particular player. I remember he was at Leicester City. His name was Robert Ambrosics. He was from Hungary, and he just could not get along with the coach. He was always, always opposing his authority, and that's just something you can't do. Because at the end of the day, these coaches are there on merit. They've worked extremely hard. A lot of them are ex-professionals, so they kind of know, and they definitely they obviously have an expectation. And in fact, I was speaking with one of our coaches at Royal Antwerp, and it's interesting because Royal Antwerp, they were the feeder club for Manchester United for quite a few years to prepare players that were in Manchester United's academy to be first team players when they go back to Manchester. So, and one of the things that he was talking about is a lot of coaches that had came and how demanding the coaches were from Manchester United when they would come to Royal Antwerp, and how it really improved. Because coaches on the continent, they're very modest, they're very humble, but then in the day they know what they're doing, they know what to expect, and their goal is to get you near the first team, Because at the end of the day, you have to be an asset to that football club. And the day you walk in there, the day you're on a contract, you need to remember, you know, I mean, you need to do what they tell you to do when they tell you to do it. Because at the end of the day, they're giving you the keys to obviously to where you want your goal to be, and your dream is to be a professional footballer. So you need to work well, and you need to be a team player. Football's a team game. It's not about one person or another person. It's about everyone working together as a group. And I mean, for example, you're speaking about a specific player in there he's worked with. You've probably seen him on the news recently. His name is Didier Lemkelze. And one of the things that with him is that he literally did things and did play for the team, and he just wants to play. He just wants to play with the ball outside. You know what I mean? Where they're playing the football aspect, but he doesn't want to do the gym work or the strength and conditioning or the rub downs. He doesn't like all of that. And so as a result now the president wants to get rid of this player, everybody, because he's just too difficult. And I think people get to a stage where they want to help you, but there comes a point in time where you got to help yourself. And so if somebody's behaving in that manner, and I'm using him as an example as to why he hasn't been able to progress. And I look at one of the other players I had, he's a player that didn't go on to make it. Now, Didier, he's a full Cameroon international. He's been Royal Antwerp. He just got a 5-year contract, very big contract. Could play in the Premier League. Very good player. But the problem is he's got too many challenges. There's a lot of stuff that comes there, and he wore an Anderlecht top. So he did at Royal Antwerp, and that really annoyed the board. In fact, they stopped him coming in. You can actually go on to if you just go on to BBC Sport, just type in his name, Didier Lemkelze, and you'll see his name. But like I say, so now the club want him out. The fans don't want to forgive him. So football is very unforgiving in certain areas, and when people feel disrespect and they feel offended, it definitely causes a ripple effect. And football has a big social element to it. Soccer is a big part of people's lives in a lot of ways. So I think people start to have that player, and you know, their time at maybe that club, or even if they're ready. So we're looking at a player. We want them to be ready. We don't want them to be like DDA or to behave like that, because that's just unacceptable. And our view at Continental Soccer is football is a privilege. It's not a right. You don't have a right to do it. It's a privilege. And I think that needs to be your attitude. You need to have an attitude of gratitude. Because a lot of people want to do it, and they never can get to that level, or for whatever reason. So that's definitely important. And I think, you know, I even look at other guys, you know, I mean, like I look at Adam Sally. He was a player I had from Northern Ireland, very talented. But once again, he went to a club in the Dutch Eredivisie, and he just couldn't apply himself. He wasn't willing to listen to people. He annoyed his host family, which they felt really disrespectful. That was unfortunate. But they were very nice people. So these are definitely important elements that actually can go towards really aiding people in their development. So these are definitely important things to be considering, you know. And then, like I say, we will obviously will look at the recruitment data all the time. And so ultimately, what we obviously want to do is we want to make sure that kids are obviously ready to go into that environment. And like I say, every year, like I say, especially in the Belgian Pro League, we obviously keep up to date. We know what's happening there, and obviously we do have quite a lot of players that are playing in the Belgian Pro League, the Dutch Eredivisie, the German Bundesliga, and we have players always wanting to come and obviously better themselves all the time. So we're always looking to make sure that kid is who's moving the right path, deserves to go into a club at that point. But like I say, we also have scouts that come out and they speak to them as well. But we do that at the right time. I don't believe you just throw somebody into that environment, because I think that increases failure versus kids that kind of come to a steady process of going through that development phase and not just been thrown in the deep end, because sometimes that doesn't always work. It might work for some, but it's very seldomly works. I'll be quite honest. So our goal is make sure that we obviously progress them in the right way. and that they get good feedback from the clubs that obviously they come out to us, and the clubs that we feel they'll be best suited to. So we kind of do that from when they come out to our when they come to talent identification, international talent identification, or the first talent identification, so they can really give feedback. So by the time they come in, and then if they're going to come into a games program, which is typically during the summer, so it's usually during pre-season, so that gives those players, gives the parents an understanding of what they can actually expect. But at the end of the day, we obviously have to make sure that everything is done correctly and that their development is managed in the right way, so they can end up being very, very successful. Because then that leads to our success as well as an organization, and that's what we want, But like I say, guys, anybody has any questions, it's been great having you on this webinar and just going through a lot of these details. And so any question you might have, you can just put them in. You can just put them in. Just engage with us across social. Also, you can also send us an email. You go to playercare@continentalaspiresoccer.com, or if you have other general inquiry, you just go to hello@continentalaspiresoccer.com, and we'll obviously come back to you. We do say give us 24 hours sometimes. If you don't hear back from us right away, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you as soon as we can, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the online football training course. This was obviously the last webinar, and hopefully you've learned a lot. And like I say, to come into the online football training where we'll actually cover that, and you'll get to meet a lot of our coaches that we've obviously spoken about, who work for some of the biggest clubs in Europe. And like I say, any more questions that you may have, don't hesitate to let us know and engage with us. And obviously, you can subscribe to our content, where you'll get more free content that's completely free. Don't have to pay for it. And anything that we can actually help you with, just join in the Continental Aspire Soccer community, and with everything CAS, where we can obviously provide you with endless content. And like I say, we'll look forward to seeing you in the online football training. Thank you, guys.